Hey there, welcome to the IDP Plus Player Props Pod, where if you're looking for some defensive props to place for Week 13 of the NFL season, you've come to the right place. Stick around, and Johnny and I will get into some of our favorite tackle props for Week 13 of the NFL season. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully, you've been here before, but if you're not, welcome in. Each week, Johnny and I have given you guys 8 players in which we've done all the research, and 8 guys that have tackle prop lines that we're particularly interested, whether it be due to matchup, players, streaks, whatever the case may be. So, again, these aren't even really suggestions. It's just research we've done to make bets of our own, and we're just kind of laying it all out there for you guys. So, you can kind of pick and choose ones that you like, and if you don't like any, then fine. That's okay too. So, uh, I just want to remind everyone each week that we want to bet responsibly. For help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, this is all just for fun. So let's stay within our means and make it even more fun. So, we'll go ahead and dive into it here. And let's see. I will let Johnny kick us off. I believe as he's first on our list here. So, Johnny, who do you got first for your first play of Week 13?
So I'm gonna start small. I'm gonna go a small time odds and a small time name, not a household name, but Darius Washington, Baltimore Raven. He's become a starter 2 weeks ago. Had a brilliant breakout game, Week 11 versus Pittsburgh. Granted, it was the right matchup. 11 tackles. That was his first start. Last week versus the Chargers, only 4 tackles. So right now, I think the books are a little bit down on him at 4.5. I'd like him to hit this well over maybe 5, 6 or more tackles. Started the last 2 games, like I had mentioned, and I think that last game, 4 tackles versus the Chargers. But the caveat is that last game, I'm throwing it away. First off, the Chargers versus safeties. When we talk about tackles given up to the safety position, the Chargers are third to the last. The third of the worst matchup for safeties. As a matter of fact, his counterpart, the dominant of the pair, the duo, Kyle Hamilton, only had 3 tackles. So actually, our Darius Washington outperformed Kyle Hamilton last week. So you could definitely, lightning struck twice. It wasn't a coincidence. Both these guys, multiple people, players, safety duos have not done well against the Chargers. So again, throw it out the window. You look at this week, Kyle Hamilton's at 7.5 tackles. That's what the books have him at. Versus Washington at 4.5. Kyle Hamilton's at -105, and here's Washington at -155. So again, not a sexy big odds pick, but I'm looking at this one to parlay it. I know on DraftKings you can parlay these defensive props, maybe parlay it with something you like offensively. But yeah, I think this is a sneaky one. This is might not be $10 to make too much, but you start sprinkling in with parlays. I think that's what it's good for here.
Yeah, our Darius Washington is kind of one of those that's come out recently, and he's just kind of popped, and you're kind of banking on he's not a flash in the pan. I've been able to outproduce some pretty hefty names in there, the secondary back there. So uh, they seem to have found the right fit because Baltimore really needed help in that secondary. But uh, now you're looking at you said Washington's line's 4.5, and Hamilton's was what you said 7.5.
7.5. And I
Oh,
mean, Washington back-to-back games, both of those games since he's been starting 100% of snaps. So I mean, they cut who was that old guy they had, Eddie Jackson. They cut
yeah,
him. Like this is the guy. It's a
yeah.
good match.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, with Philadelphia allowing almost 14 tackles a game, I think to safeties, you're looking at 1 tackle more than what the lines are even saying that. If we were to place the overs on both of these and they were to hit, you're still looking at less tackles than what they give up on average.
Right.
So I think that our Darius Washington, I think it could swing one way or the other, and it seems like he's been popping as of lately. And Kyle Hamilton, we saw kind of cool down. So I mean, who knows? I kind of like this as a sneaky play for our Darius Washington over 4.5. It's really not that bad of a line for a guy who can that you've seen a 12 tackle ceiling. This could very well be
Mhm.
something he achieves early if things go right. So, yeah, like that 4.5 line. Let's see here. My first play, I'm going to go with Patrick Queen under on his solo tackle line. It was at 4.5. He comes in at -120, plays Cincinnati this week. He's only hit this over in 3 out of 11 games, so we're looking pretty good there in terms of just history so far this year. That's in our side. So he's primarily an assisted tackle guy, anyways. We are looking at a 41-38 assist, or I think it was solo to assist ratio is right there, right around 50-50. So he's not an overachiever by any stretch. And we're looking at a mid matchup for linebackers and a guy who's only hit it in 3 out of 11 games. I think this is all kind of setting up for Patrick Queen to remain under this 4.5. So I like this one for Patrick.
Yeah, I like that too, man. I mean, I was looking at him. His like you said, it's just kind of even split there with the solos and the assists. History's on our side. I don't know how this game's going to be. Is this heavy dose of TJ Watt, fumbles and sacks and sloppy game, or is this a shootout?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I know it's going to be a gritty one. And, solo tackles are hard to come by. I know he's in the mix for a lot of assists, so I like it, Axton. I think minus 120, this is a good value here. Um, Moving over to my second pick, I am going to roll out Christian Rozeboom over 7.5 combined tackles versus the Saints, top 12 matchup, or minus 130. Christian Rozeboom, a couple key notes: 23 tackles in the last 2 games, playing 100% of snaps. Troy Reader is on the verge of comeback, but he's still on IR for this week, so you're not going to see him. So unless, uh, Omar Speights comes out and plays 100%, and they give him the keys, and Christian Rozeboom snaps go down. That's the only reason I could see this not hitting. Over the last 2 games, averaging over 11 tackles. New Orleans gives up the 11th most tackles to linebackers. So it's a top 12 matchup, and I think in this game you're going to see a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara, probably a lot of Taysom Hill in the middle of the field. Things that are going to tend to run up the middle of the field. Even Marquez Valdez-Scantling, their deep threats, only getting 4 or 5 looks a game. So I expect this to be a good, linebackers paradise here for Christian Rozeboom. And I mean, 7.5. We can see him rack them up now. So it's a good matchup. It's minus 130. You got some pretty good odds on it. So Christian Rozeboom, one more game. Probably not taking it next week when Reader comes back. But for the time being, yeah, I'll roll that dice.
Yeah, he's a guy that's got what about a 6 tackle floor, roughly. He's
Mm-hmm.
only gotten under 6 tackles so far this year twice. So he's flirty. He's right just under that as a floor of a tackler. And then he's also a guy who, in a good matchup, is can be seen as an overachiever. He's a guy that's going to go out and get you 11, 12 tackles or so, where he's gotten 10 or more in what, 5 weeks so far this year. So, I mean, if you give this guy a good matchup and you put his line at 7.5, I love the combination there, especially when you look at it at minus 130. You combine that with one of these other plays, and you're looking at 2 or 3 times your cash, and just
Mm-hmm.
probably, I would imagine you would be looking at plus 300 odds or better for just a couple of quick plays here on somebody who's done right by, hit this in several weeks so far this year. So, love that line for the next play there. My next line here, I'm going to go with Kyzir White on his combined tackle line. He's another one of those guys that, as I mentioned just a second ago, he's one of those that can overachieve when he's in a good matchup. He tends to do well and can even surpass that. He doesn't just do a 7, 8 tackle, 9 tackle good game. He can get 10, 12, 13 tackles if on any given week. So I think he's kind of been up and down throughout the year, but his line was at 7.5 as well. It comes in at minus 110. Um, and he plays Minnesota this week, which is actually a top 3 matchup for Kyzir White. He's hit this. He actually hit this in his first week out of the bye last week, so that's a great sign for us that he's not cold coming out of the bye week. So you just kind of got to hope that he can develop a little bit of consistency for us here because he's kind of been a little bit inconsistent where we're used to seeing him do 10 plus tackles every single week until this year, about what, midway through the season or so. But both linebackers on the opponents of Minnesota's last let's see, in Minnesota's last 4 games, the opposing linebackers have both achieved this line in, like I say, each of the last 4 weeks. So both middle linebackers for each of Minnesota's last 4 opponents. That's hard to say. I couldn't say put that into words there for a second, but yeah. So the last 8 linebackers that have faced the Minnesota Vikings have achieved this. So I really like Kyzir White, especially, like I say, a guy that can be an overproducer or an overachiever when he gets a good matchup. I like that. So especially considering he's hit this in 5 games already. So sign me up for some Kyzir White, especially with some damn near plus odds, -110. So thoughts on that, Johnny, and then we'll roll you into your next play.
Man, like you said, tough to say, but boy, it needs to be said because that's powerful. 4 out of the last 4 games that they've allowed both opponents, to hit that. So that's a great stat right there. Love the gritty work there, Axton. And as far as Kyzir White goes in this matchup, I mean, you didn't even do it justice, man. I mean, you're being modest over there. You're right. This is a top 3 matchup over the last 3 weeks, though. If you look at the average over the last 3 weeks, so Minnesota as a whole on the season is sitting at around 18 and a half tackles given up to opposing linebackers. Pittsburgh Steelers lead the league with 19.4. Over the last 3 games, though, the Minnesota Vikings, nobody in the NFL has allowed more tackles to the linebacker position, probably because that stat you had just dropped, but it's 23.3, which blows the Steelers out by almost 4 points. So whatever's going on there in Minnesota, sign us up. So good call, Axton. Love that Kyzir White, and you put me on. So you learn something new every day. So for my next pick, I'm going to roll old, steady, reliable, second in the league in combined tackles, Nick Cross, over 7.5 combined tackles this week, -120 versus New England. Let me just start off by saying this before I talk about hits and how many times. Nick Cross, out of 12 games, half of them, 6, have been 10 or more tackles. That's just enough said right there. Dude's has swag. He's a banger. He hit this in 8 out of, I'm sorry. He hit this in 8, he hit this in 9 out of 12 games. 9 out of 12 games, he's hit this over 7.5. New England is a middle of the road matchup on paper. But if you look at the last 3 weeks, on paper is the whole season. We're talking Brissett, other quarterback. We're looking at Drake May now. The last 3 weeks, Drake May has been there. They've actually allowed 19.7, which would lead the league if we were just talking the last 3 weeks. New England, 19.7 tackles allowed to the safety position the last 3 weeks. So whatever's going on there, just like we said in Minnesota, is happening with New England too. So sign me up, Nick Cross. I mean, this kind of scares me. It's so low for somebody that's hit double digits half their games. But I'm going to take this and run with it to the bank. So Nick Cross, once again, over 7.5 combined tackles, -120. Back to you, Axton.
Nick Cross has done it for us. He's kind of, like you said, back to the well. He's a guy that's done it for us throughout the year. And when you give a guy that can well overachieve 10, 12, 14 plus tackles on any given week, especially in a good matchup, you give him a good matchup and you give him a line at 7.5. Sign me up. I like that all day. The Indianapolis Colts, it's kind of like some how don't like a high powered offense. You almost want a piece of that, and the defense in terms of just box score production, they're kind of the same way. They pack the stat sheet with just tackles and pass deflections and all kinds of stuff. I mean, Zaire and EJ Speed average 10 or more tackles a game. Nick Cross is averaging right around that much. Jalen Jones is averaging an incredible amount for a cornerback on a game-to-game basis. So this defense just fills the stat sheet. But they also allow a lot of production, so teams are able to, remain successful and push the ball down the field, and they often see the field a lot. So it, like I say, it just lends well to production for us here when we're making bets. And I'm actually going to lean into the same game, but I'm going to look at Zaire Franklin's assisted tackle line, and we're going to hit the over on his 3.5 assisted tackle line. This comes in at plus 100. And let's see here. Zaire, like I say, like we were just saying, Zaire and EJ Speed are both averaging 10. I know Zaire's over 10 for sure. I think EJ Speed was just under 10 per game, but over 10 tackles a game, and Zaire Franklin splits were like 48% assisted. Here specifically, let's see, he gets 10 tackles a game, and assists come at a 48% clip. So even if he gets 8 tackles, we're taking away 2 off, shaving 2 off of his average. If he gets 8 tackles and he hits his 48% clip or 50%, and gets 4 assists here, we're still looking good. And then that gives us 2 extra tackles to play with that he gets on average. And then we're also looking at a plus top 7 play for linebacker production in general on the season. So you're looking at a guy who's averaging a lot in a plus matchup. Well, like I've been mentioning the whole show, overachievers overachieve, and if you give them a good matchup, they're good bets. So I really like this. This a high tackle floor at 10 tackles, a 50% clip on the assisted line, and we're looking at plus money. So sign me up for some Zaire Franklin to hit this, and he's only fallen short of it 4 times this year. So we've got a 75% hit rate at this point already. So I like that for Zaire to hit over 3.5 assisted tackles, and give me some plus juice too, Johnny.
Hey man, enough said. Zaire Franklin leads the league in tackles. Great bet here to get over 3.5 assists. So, and you're getting juice. Great find there, Axton. Props to you. Before we move over to my last pick, I just wanted to mention if you like what we're doing out here, if you watch the show or other betting shows here at IDP Plus, if you are not already a subscriber, you can do so at idpplus.com. And if you want to just skip all the steps and you want to become a subscriber right away, just go to idpplus.com/membership. That'll take you right to the subscription page. And I'll do you one more. If you use the promo code PROPS, you will get 20% off that monthly subscription. Once again, idpplus.com/membership. Use the promo code PROPS to get your 20%. My final pick, going to take an under here, Axton. Usually don't do this often, but there's a couple guys, and this is one of them, Devondre Campbell, under
We've been
7.
dry on the unders, man. We need another one. So yeah, hit me with it.
I saved the day on this one. Devondre Campbell, under 7.5 combined tackles and minus 125 versus Buffalo. Now, Devondre Campbell, maybe Vegas is onto something here. On one hand, Devondre Campbell has been good under 7.5 combined tackles. He's hit this in 9 out of the 11 games he's played this season. Now, keep in mind, last game he did have 8 tackles, so he broke out. He broke the mold. The game before that, 7 tackles, so he was close, which kind of scares me on first thought. But look at the season as a whole. The 9 out of 11 kind of pad the stats, makes me a little bit more comfortable. Plus, you get the fact that last week that 8 tackle game was versus Green Bay. This week is versus Buffalo. It's not really like a glowing difference of a matchup. It's more or less the same to me. Maybe Green Bay was a lesser and Buffalo's a little bit better, but to me in this game script, I see a lot of Josh Allen throwing the ball. The amount of points actually the safeties specifically, San Francisco gives up the most points to safeties. So for me, I think Buffalo's going to take advantage of that. They're going to be throwing the ball, not really going to have many options in the run game for Devondre Campbell to break the mold in this one. So, as history goes, 9 out of 11, he's been good for this. Devondre Campbell is one of our under guys. And, if you're with me on the game script, if, you believe in the stats I just laid out, then I think, like I said, Josh Allen's going to be chucking this ball. And it's going to be tough for Devondre Campbell to hit this marker. Maybe there's a lot of snow that's supposedly, in the area. So maybe that slows things down for Devondre Campbell. Maybe it slows him down and he can't get to the ball carrier. So we'll see how it goes. But this is one of our guys here. So I'm going back to the well, Hacks. Back to you.
Yeah, Yeah, solid. He's like you said, he's one of those guys that when you see his line at 7.5 or 8.5, especially, you definitely go look at his matchup. We've got a few other guys kind of like that where they're kind of the first ones that you notice. You're always looking for them because if the books think that their line should be a little bit higher. We want to kind of see if we can take advantage in it. I mean, Devondre Campbell's been one that throughout the year it hasn't really mattered the matchup. He's not an overachiever. He's one that has hit 9 and 8 tackles in what that was 2 games all year that he's actually hit this. Every other game has been 7 and less. So he's not one that overachieves in a great matchup. So he's one that we can count on to underachieve. So when you get a good line like that and some pretty good odds there, I think I forgot to put the banner up. Apologies about that. But yeah, minus 125 as you can see here. So love that line there for Devondre Campbell to hit the under yet again this year. So let's make it 10 for 12.
Yeah.
My last play here to wrap things up for this week is going to be Antoine Winfield. We've got a lot of juice on this one, so it makes me kind of nervous that the books don't think very highly, or they think this is very unlikely. But we're going to see if we can capitalize because we've got a big name here, and that's Antoine Winfield Jr. to hit his over on his 2.5 assisted tackle line. This comes in at plus 145, and he plays the Carolina Panthers offense, which I know for much of the year has been disastrous for opposing production anywhere because they just don't sustain drives. They're 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out. But if you go look at the box scores the last couple of weeks or look at tape, uh, Bryce Young has looked a lot better. He's actually been able to push the ball downfield and score on teams. He's actually scored several touchdowns in the last couple of weeks. I'm not saying that they're lighting the world on fire. It's still the Carolina Panthers. They're in pretty much full tank mode. But Bryce Young has looked a lot better than he did whenever he was getting benched for Andy Dalton earlier in the season. He's really come back, and I mean, he kept the game close. They had an opportunity to win against the Kansas City Chiefs last week. The Carolina Panthers are looking kind of feisty right now, so I think that you'll see the Buccaneers defense on the field more than maybe what the books want to lead us on here to believe. So, but I would say, as a little bit of a caveat, in the last couple of weeks since the Carolina has been more successful, they've allowed about 14 tackles a game to opposing safeties in that time. So you got to figure roughly half of those on average are going to one or the other, and the free safety or strong safety. If you just want to give it an even split, generally the safety that's going to play more around the line of scrimmage, or there's just one player that's going to get more tackles just due to their role or the kind of player that they are. So 14 tackles a game. You split it down the middle, you're looking at 7 tackles. But if you also break it down a little bit more, Antoine Winfield still has the same amount of tackles as Christian Izien, who's the strong safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Antoine Winfield has missed 4 games. If you extrapolate that out and say put his average in those games and fill that in, he gets tackles at what did I put here? A 3-to-2 ratio to Izien. So for every 3 tackles that Winfield gets, Izien's getting 2. So he gets almost a third more tackles than Christian Izien. So if we even add an extra tackle to that, we're looking at 8 or more tackles. And then also Winfield's splits are pretty fair for this line as well, especially at 2.5 assisted tackles. I should have put them. There. I did put in a little note here saying that they were actually pretty even in terms of his solo assisted split. So again, if you're looking at 8 to 9 tackles for Winfield in this one, and you're looking at about a 50-50 split for solos or assists, we're crushing 2.5. And then you go back and look at the last couple of weeks. Brian Cook for Kansas City, and then Tyler Nubin, the strong safety for the Giants. 2 safeties in the last 2 weeks have achieved this, and Winfield being this primary tackle and safety for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I really like 2.5 for a pure tackler. So. Especially with some plus juice against an offense that should be on the field a little bit more. They're going to be competitive because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is nothing to write home about. So I think Carolina should be able to sustain some drives and keep Tampa Bay on the field, and I think Antoine Winfield could easily hit this 2.5 assisted tackle line. So that's going to wrap up our show this week. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. Thank you for those that come back. Feel free to like and subscribe. Give us a comment. Follow Johnny on Twitter at JohnnyFreakinF1. Follow myself at AxemanIDP. Go ahead and check out the website idpplus.com. I'm sure we've got plenty of subscriptions. Check out any of the descriptions in our YouTube channel for subscription codes. Get a code and test it out for a month or something. See if you like it. Maybe we can persuade you to get a season-long code. There's all kinds of tools and access you can have to articles and all kinds of things you could you can't even imagine. So give us a chance, and thanks everyone for sticking with us and checking out the video. We will be back next week for week 14. So good luck out there. Bet responsibly, stay within your means, and let's have some fun. Hopefully we can help you guys take home some extra money this week. So good luck out there, everybody.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.